Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Stephen King podcast. This is another bonus episode, and this is bonus episode 36. And today I have with me writer Rachael Tamayo. Is that right?
Close. Tamayo. That's okay.
Tamayo. My apologies.
That's totally okay.
Cool. You're a former romance novelist, apparently, and your latest work is a thriller called Crazy Love, and we're going to be talking about that and how you became a writer and whatnot. But why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what it is you're doing?
Well, I live in Texas. I've been writing for most of my life. I have been married, I want to say 16 years this Saturday.
And congratulations.
Thank you. I think it's 16. You get above a certain number and you have to start counting on your fingers.
yeah, exactly. Time flies when you're having fun, eh?
Right. And I've got 2 kids, 8 and 4.
Okay. And so what is it that you just released this novel, Crazy Love, or is it out already?
No, that one's been out for a while, actually.
Okay.
It was my first thriller.
Ah, okay.
But it was like my transition novel between
I see.
romance and thriller. I was never really entirely comfortable writing romance, but I wanted to start somewhere before I really dove into thrillers, because writing a thriller is a completely different animal than writing a romance.
Right. Okay, well, let's take a couple of steps back then and see how you made the journey from romance to thrillers. And I see here that it says former 9/11 emergency operator and police dispatcher. Is that still? Are you still former? Or are you doing any of those jobs?
No, it's still former.
Okay.
I was a 911 and police dispatcher for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at it for about 3 years now.
Okay.
The last big call I worked was the Santa Fe school shooting.
Oh.
And honestly, it was, I can't go back into it after that. And I wasn't even a direct dispatcher, quite honestly. It was I live maybe 20 minutes away from Santa Fe High School.
Right.
And their dispatch center called us wanting our SWAT team. And so that's what happened. They called me. He was still in the school. Everything was still going down. And I dispatched our SWAT team over there. And after that, I couldn't do it anymore. Right. I decided it was time to get out.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
And honestly, most number one dispatchers don't do it for a lifetime. Most of them get in and out after a few years and end up doing something else. That's why there's a 20-year retirement. You can retire at 20 years from being a 911 dispatcher, no matter what age you are.
Interesting. So parallel to that then, so that you've had a job history that's a lot of us would consider very high pressure and intense at times. So I'm wondering how that played into your writing. And were you doing any sort of writing education, taking courses, or part of a writing club or anything like that?
No, the only thing I did was when I first started writing again, which was when I was back and started writing romances. I got online to look for, I honestly don't even know what I was looking for, but I knew I wanted to take it more seriously and do better at it. I found a website called critiquecircle.com, and it's basically a website. You can get the free version or you can pay a few bucks a month to get the premium version. Basically, what it is writers, there's of any realm, genre, professional, non-professional, use this website. Basically, you put chapters of your book up, one chapter at a time, and other writers come on and critique it for you, like line by line, what they liked, what they didn't like, what you need to change, this and that, and you go in and do the same for other writers. So basically, you're getting feedback from strangers in the same family as you, and you can use that to, as you will. I used it to improve my writing, because when I started, I knew I was writing all over the place in first person, third person, past tense, present tense, And they told me, you got to pick a lane and stay in it.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I used all that.
Ah, okay.
I don't use it anymore, but I used it for the first few years.
Okay. And were you a big reader, or are you a big reader?
Yes, I've always liked to read. And right now, because I am just busy all the time, I read almost exclusively audiobooks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're very big nowadays. Yep.
I love them because I can listen to them in the car while I'm folding laundry, sitting at
Yep.
work doing, mundane tasks.
Yep.
I can have an audiobook playing.
Mm.
But yes, I've always liked to read.
Okay. And what genres do you like?
Honestly, I've always liked thrillers. I used to read as a teenager a lot of Christian fiction, but it was still in the suspense kind of family.
Okay.
I've read a few romances here and there, but I got real bored with them real fast because in my taste, they're all the same. And I get too bored with that.
Okay.
So I like thrillers, psychological thrillers, domestic thrillers. I've read Stephen King.
Any favorite authors?
Well, I mean, I grew up listening to Ted Dekker.
Okay.
He started out as a mainstream thriller and suspense author.
Okay.
And I've always loved his stuff because it's just so, and I'm not a real big fantasy. I don't care for like sci-fi or fantasy very much, but his stuff is so different that like the Circle series.
Okay.
It's just, I love his stuff. And I like Stephen King's thrillers.
Okay.
I'm too much of a chicken for horror. So
interesting.
It's too scary. I'm not gonna let's not do that.
Interesting, considering your work history. I'm sure you experienced a lot of horrible things.
Right. Yeah. And I have, but most of it is just day to day.
Right.
Mundane, waiting for the phone to ring kind of stuff. But then any second, all hell can break loose.
Right. Right. Okay. So, were you writing during your work career, or did that start after you've left your job?
I would say that started about 3 years before I left.
Okay.
I grew up writing from when I was a kid and through my teenage years. And then somewhere in my early 20s, I stopped. I just kind of gave up. Didn't touch it for a lot of years. And then I got put on night shift because that's just the nature of the beast. When you're dispatching, you can be on one shift for years and then get bumped down or bumped up or whatever.
Right.
But I got put on night shift, and there's a lot of dead time on night shift. So I'm thinking maybe I should just start writing again because it's always been in the back of my mind, these characters, and I'm thinking about these stories always. So that's when I decided I was going to use the time to start writing again.
Right.
And take it seriously and see how far I could go with it.
Cool.
And it took about a year. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of rejection.
And you started out with romance, which is an interesting choice because you just said you actually got bored of romance novels. So I'm wondering why you took that as your first steps.
Honestly, I think a lot of people start that way. Romance is an easy beginning. Okay. And as a teenager, that's what I would write. Right. So I guess that's kind of where I picked up kind of where I left off. I was afraid, honestly, to try my hand at a thriller. I was afraid I wasn't good enough. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to push my way through it. Right. Because you can do anything. With romance, it's like A plus B equals C. They're all the same. There's a formula to it. Right. And it has to have a certain ending, certain beginning, certain middle. Thrillers, you can go any which way. It's like horror that way. Right. You can start it any way. It doesn't have to have a happy ending. You don't have to like your characters. It's right. I've noticed a lot of that actually reading thrillers. Is I read these thrillers, and I'm like, God, I don't like this character. Right. But that adds to the story. They're not meant to like the character. I think. Right.
Okay, so you started off with romance stories, and I'm assuming that's when you started using this website as well. How did your writing evolve from when you started or did it change much? Like, it sounds to me you must have been what we call a pantser. You just wrote whatever came to you, or are you an outliner? Do you plot pretty heavily?
I'm a pantser, totally. I actually tried my hand at plotting one time, and it was a complete disaster. Okay. Yeah, no, I can't do it. And I'm like, much respect to the ones that can, because it's got to be much less stressful way to write. Because I'm just sitting here staring at, my current book. I'm working on book 4, my current work in progress of the Deadly Sin series. And I've just been staring at it for the longest time because I'm kind of stuck with the plot. And I absolutely will not write if I don't know where I'm going with it. I feel like if I have to know what I'm doing and where I'm going and what's going to happen before I write it. Otherwise, it's not going to come out very well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to force myself.
Okay. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of this in your head.
Yeah, kind of. It's like I get an idea and I start thinking about it. Ooh, that's a good idea. I think I could go that direction with it. So I put that down.
Right.
And then I stop and I'm like, so now what happens? And then usually it goes pretty quickly. But the more complicated the novel is, the harder it is for me to push through it. Like the one I have coming out, I have a new thriller coming out in February of next year. It's the third book in the Deadly Sin series called Mine. It is a thriller based around the sin of greed, of the 7 deadly sins. Okay. And that book was probably the most complicated plot I've done to date, because it's a lot of twists and turns and, surprises all through the book. And that one took, I don't remember how long it took, but usually I could sit down and crank a book out in like 6 months. It seems to be taking longer now, because as I get my bearings and realize as a writer and become better and better with each book will take a little bit longer because it's a little more complicated. And I have more confidence that I actually can push through those complicated plots.
Right. So I'm just curious then, because like as a pantser, and you're working on a series, are these books interconnected, or is it different characters with every book?
They're different characters with every book. And it's kind of unique because the series is based around the 7 deadly sins, obviously. Right. Each book is a story based around one of the 7 deadly sins, and each book is a standalone story. Right. So the thread that weaves them all together is the 7 deadly sins, the theme of the book. Okay. The characters don't come back. They're all unique. It's a beginning and an end. So you can start the series anywhere you want. Right. I have the Sin of Wrath out, which is Break My Bones. The Sin of Lust, which is Carnal Knowledge. And the third book that's coming out next spring is The Sin of Greed, Mine. And I'm right now working on Envy. Okay. So very good. And the 7 deadly sins, that's a pretty powerful theme for a novel series for sure. And was it always in your mind that these were going to be standalone books from each other? Was there ever any thoughts of having a set of characters going through all these stories? Or honestly, I didn't know when I got the idea. I started it after I finished. I finished the book Lucifer's Game, which is a supernatural romantic suspense, I guess. Right. And everybody really liked that character in the book. And I was thinking, well, what can I do with him? I thought of doing a spinoff. I thought of doing another book with him in it. And as that rolled through my mind, I got the idea for the series when I was at a conference, actually. I was at a 911 conference. They do a yearly conference, and they've been doing them here in Galveston, not far from where I am. Right. So I went to the last couple before I left the field. Right. And the last one I went to, the keynote speaker was Elizabeth Smart. Okay. And I was honestly just flabbergasted and so excited to hear her in person tell her story. And she told her story, the same story you hear on TV everywhere. And while I was listening to that, I don't know, just the seed of the idea hit me. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew I had an idea. Cool. And I realized I could write a book around each one of the 7 deadly sins. And honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do with the sins like sloth and, what am I going to do with that? How are you going to turn that into a psychological twisted thriller? But I don't know, but the idea will come to me. Right. I actually do have an idea for that one, but I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with it. Okay. I guess the obvious question I have to ask is how much of your work experience is in these books? Well, it's like I feel like I have a sense of what people do when bad things happen to them. Okay. How they act and how they react and the different ways that people are when they come into these situations. So there's no right or wrong way. You can't obviously even know yourself unless you're in that situation. I find that too. People think that, I would be this way. Right. I would, this is how I would react if this happened, but you don't know. You really don't know because if you're faced with it and the adrenaline hits you and the fear and all that stuff comes at you, then you really just don't know how you're going to react. You hope you're going to react this way, but you might react the complete opposite way. And that's just the way it is. Right. But that kind of knowledge that most people don't have. And then I have insight into the mental illness that a lot of people don't have because I've dealt with a lot of that. Right.
Right. That's so that, yeah, that must be a big tool for you then.
Yes, I use all that, and I try not to portray mental illness as like a
Sure.
necessarily you're crazy, so you're bad.
Right.
Not sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're taken advantage of, sometimes it's just what it is. I do try not to make it that way. I try to make it realistic, try to make it respectful, but exciting to read.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you're not really good with horror. These novels sounds to me like they could be pretty horrific. So like, are these like, would you consider these R-rated type of books in terms of violence or things of that nature, or gore, or?
There's a lot of like hinting at things that have happened without going into graphic detail, basically.
Right.
Now, there may be blood and death and things that happen to this person, things that happen to that person, but I tend to dance around those kind of descriptions.
Okay.
Typically, like, I'll tell you this, in my book, one coming out next year, I haven't talked about this book at all because I just signed the contract for it. It's just brand new. But that book opens with a murder. Like, bam, right in your face. The character, she's washing her hands in the sink and washing the blood out of her shirt. And there's a dead guy on the couch and, you know, this kind of thing. That's how that book opens.
Right. Which is a good way for a thriller to open.
Right. I really try to open with a bang. Really try to open with a bang and close with a bang, because I love, my favorite books are the ones that grab me like right away and leave me shocked at the end.
Right. Yep.
Which honestly hard to do, because I've had people tell me, I hate watching movies with you because you always figure out the ending. Well, that's because I'm a writer.
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking, if I was writing this, that's how I would end it, and that's how it ends.
Yeah.
Like, I hate watching movies with you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'll keep my mouth
shut. Yeah. I can see that. So with the Deadly Sin series, then is it basically a cop versus a perpetrator kind of story, or what viewpoint are you writing most of these stories?
It's more on the other side.
Okay.
Like, the cops are there.
Right.
Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're in the way.
Right.
Like in Carnal Knowledge, there's cops in that story. She's being stalked by a serial killer, basically. Her soon-to-be ex-husband is a former police officer, and there's detectives in this story, and there's a chief of police. This is like one of these good old boys, and you know, it's like he knows his stuff, but he also plays the game, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm 100% back the cops. They're bad seeds in there here and there, but you know, most of the cops they're really there to help us. I'm not trying to portray them as bad.
Right.
I'm trying to portray them as real people.
Right.
They're real people, and they make good decisions and bad decisions. They're just like the rest of us.
Right.
That is what I go for, but the cops are definitely in those
right. So you're really working to get fully fleshed characters on both sides of the fence.
Yes, I do go through periodically and read reader reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and that forth, and I see a lot of that. My books are fast paced. I don't have a lot of fluff and filler in there. It's like a lot of from one thing to another.
Okay.
And my characters are, I really do try to make them realistic and layered, and it's where you can connect with them. Sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. But I do get a lot of that. Your character is very realistic.
Right. That's a very nice compliment, because that's not always easy to do for some writers. So you should be proud of that for sure.
Right.
I'm wondering, I know that John Grisham, I believe it's John Grisham, he knows the last line of his book before he starts the story. Do you know the end of your story before you start?
I would say probably about 80% of the time I do. Yes.
Okay.
Like in Carnal Knowledge, that is like the best and most awesome ending I've written. I love the ending of that book.
Right.
And I really had an idea of where I was going with it, and I knew what I wanted to happen, but I wasn't sure how to get there. And Break My Bones, actually, I knew exactly how I wanted that book to end. I knew how I wanted that to end. And it was basically knowing the end without knowing anything else, but having to write towards that.
Okay.
And the last couple, and the one I'm writing now, and the one I just signed and is coming out in spring, it was actually different, though. I think that's part of what's stalling me. is not knowing how I'm going to end it.
Okay. Well, there you have some homework now.
Yeah, I know. I'm been racking my brain. It's driving me crazy. Driving me nuts.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll hit me, and then
because you're a pantser, and like this is one of the things I love about talking to writers, because everybody's process is different. I'm just wondering how, and you've mentioned several times now that you really worked on creating realistic characters. How do you keep and or create your characters and keep that all straight in your head? When you have the idea for a story, do you say, okay, so this is the idea. Now I need a character that has this and this and this problem to make this story work? Like, is that just really organic for you and you just feel it out, or do you have like character notes that you keep for each character? Or
I do keep some character notes because I'm trying to remember, little details that I'll screw up as I write the story and not remember where I said they were born or how old they were, things like that.
Right.
I have those little notes.
Okay.
But like in Carnal Knowledge, the main character in that book is out now, by the way. It came out this last July.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thriller. It's around a character, and her name is Ren, and basically she's assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's given the date rape drug and wakes up having been assaulted.
Right.
And she doesn't report it. She goes through all this in her head and realizing she's going to be one of those women that doesn't tell. And some people had trouble with her because they didn't like the fact that she reacted the way she did. I wrote it that way on purpose because knowing what I know,
that happens.
And it does happen more often than it doesn't. So I wanted to make her realistic, and I used it like, okay, you can relate to this character because if you were in the situation, would you tell?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that you might not like it, you might not be proud of it, you might not like her, but in this situation, most people probably wouldn't say anything because I don't think the cops would do anything.
Right.
Whether the cops actually can or can't is beside the point.
Right.
I just write them, and I try to think of what decision they would make in the situation, what kind of person they are, playing off the other characters in the story.
Okay. So let's turn a little to just a little more on the technical side of things for you. What is your writing routine? Are you, do you write better in the morning, or do you have to wait till the kids are asleep and do it at night, or you just grab whatever window slice of times you have and do it then?
Basically, I don't have a real strict routine because I've seen authors that have to be in a certain place at a certain time and music has to be playing and they have to have all these things. And I've never been like that because I don't have time. I have 2 small kids and a full-time job besides the writing and just all these other things going on. I write when I can. When inspiration hits me, when I get the idea and I get time to sit down and write it, I can write on the couch. I use OneDrive by Microsoft to back all my stuff. I don't actually have hard copies on my computer. I use the cloud-based program because I can use it anywhere and I know it's secure there if something happens to my computer. So I have everything saved in OneDrive, and I can open OneDrive on my phone. I can open it on my tablet, on my computer. I can use it anywhere. And I've been known to sit in the doctor's office and write out a scene. I can do it. Because I think part of that, though, is because I was a dispatcher for so long. I have a unique ability to tune things out and focus without distraction when I want to. Because I had to do that. Because, when you're in a dispatch center, a 911 center, there's a lot of things going on. This phone's ringing behind you. The phone over here is ringing. The TV's on. The radio's going off. And you have to listen to the person in your ear. So you have to tune all these things out and hear only that. So I have that a lot of the abilities that I've developed over the years as a dispatcher stuck with me. And that was one of them. So it helps me because I can write anywhere.
Right. So now that when you started out writing and you had your first books coming out, were you published by old school, or did you self-publish and put them up on Amazon or whatnot?
No, I've never self-published. I actually did have a short book I self-published just because it was reader requested, basically. Like a spin-off of one of my books. It's not even up anymore. It was just like a little novella. Right. But all my books have been traditionally published. So I started out with Solstice Publishing, and now I'm with Foster Emery and Tangled Tree Publishing. Okay,
very good. And do you, when you finish a novel now, what's the process for you there? Do you do an edit pass at the end, or do you edit every piece that you've written the day before or try to kind of get back into it. And then once you're done editing, do you have a group of beta readers or anything like that?
Yes, I actually do. My process is basically I'll start the book and I'll write for a while. And because I'm a pantser, I tend to have to go back to the beginning and start over a few times.
Okay.
Realizing, okay, my plot has changed. I need to go back to the beginning and rewrite a few things. So I'll basically go back and do a copy and paste, change this, change that, kind of start over from the beginning a few times. I usually anywhere between 3 and 5 times for my books. I have to start over because of that. And then when I finally get through it, get to the end, usually the time I get to the end, I know exactly where I'm going. I know what I'm doing, and I can write the ending one time and I'm done. But then when I get finished, I'll read through it again. I'll try and do an edit at that point. But usually I'll send it to beta readers. I'll have a friend of mine. I know, I'm numerous authors. I'll have one of them run through it for me. My last one, my new one, I actually had an author friend edit it for me and send off before I send it to the publisher. But yeah, I do. I have a group of those that do it for me.
Okay, very good. Your story is a little unique nowadays because most of the writers I've interviewed, they've usually been self-published to a large degree. And so I was just curious. It's again curious that you've managed to do the traditional route, and it sounds like you're happy with that. And you never had any thoughts of going out on your own?
No, honestly, from the beginning, because of course, when I started, there was no such thing as self-publishing. There was only traditional publishing.
Right.
And now it's a lot of self-publishing, which is great.
Yeah.
But it was always a goal for me, like from when I was 12 years old. It's always been a goal to have a publisher like me enough to say, yes, I want that book.
Okay.
So it's just like a goal. It's like a personal best kind of thing. I have nothing against self-publishing at all. There's some amazing writers that do it simply because it just works best for them.
Sure.
And they don't want they don't want a publishing company, having control over their work, which I totally get. But it's just a personal thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned audiobooks. Are your books done in audio?
Some of them are, yes. My most recent ones, the Deadly Sin series, are not. But most of the other ones are. Crazy Love is available in audio, Lucifer's Game, and a few of the Deadly Sin series. I'm not Deadly Sins. The Friend Zone series are on audio. I'm actually in the middle of getting those put on audio.
Okay.
But yes, Crazy Love is, Lucifer's Game is, yes.
Okay, very good. And so you're currently, I guess, almost halfway through the 7 Deadly Sins series. You've got 3 more books to write after this, or 2 more, I guess?
Yes, after my current one and plus 3 more.
All right.
Oh, my daughter's in here knocking stuff over.
That's okay. And have you thought beyond this series yet? What you're going to do next? Or
have money?
Do what?
Have you thought beyond this series what you're going to write next yet, or is that too far down the road?
No, not really. It's kind of far down the road.
Okay.
Yeah. When I get to the last book, I'll worry about that.
Sure. I guess that's pretty well all the questions I had. Is there anything that you wanted to mention that hasn't come up yet during the course of the interview?
No, I'm good. It was great. I can't think of anything.
Okay, thank you. And I guess the usual, where can people find your books?
The best place is probably my website, RachelTamayoWrites.com. I keep it pretty up to date. You can find me and my reading list and all my books and everything.
Okay, and do you have a social media presence at all? Or
yeah, I'm on Facebook some. I have Twitter, but I don't really use it very much. I am also on TikTok.
Okay, Okay. All right. Well, that's very good. I wish you all the success, continued success with your series. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Good stuff. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. And don't worry about the little stuff at the end with your daughter, I assume.
Okay.
Yes. Or son. Mm-hmm. I'll edit that out. So.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
That's okay. You're not a problem.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.